must respect that. Today's session is really about why brainstorming is a waste of time. Let me tell you a story first as to why I thought of this topic. This incident happened to me a couple of weeks ago, and I had gone to attend a wedding of the daughter of a friend of mine. This friend is a client of mine actually. And as he entered, he was there in the entrance, and then another gentleman entered, and my friend introduced me to this gentleman. We introduced each other and so on. My friend said this guy is in the innovation business and he does a lot of brainstorming sessions. And then he introduced the other gentleman as CEO of a very large organization and so on. So we went with our families and sat down at the table. And this gentleman said, I know you do brainstorming for a living, but I must tell you, I don't believe brainstorming works. It's a waste of time, and I don't understand why organizations spend so much time and money and energy in doing that. I was quite taken aback by that straight attack. But then I said, obviously, you must have some solid reasons why you're saying that. So, can you just explain what happened? So, he said, look, every year I have this annual planning meeting. I take the best of my people. We go to Macau, we go to Mauritius, we go to Sri Lanka, and then I lead the session and I ask them for ideas. Even the brightest people are not able to come out with anything, and every time I come back disappointed. And just to sort of bail out the session, I finally have to pull some idea of my own, and that's what we come out with. And so I think brainstorming is a highly overrated idea. It's not useful at all for most companies, and I don't know why people are wasting money on it. I don't think I'll waste any money any further on this. So I just kept quiet. I realized that he was actually competing with his own people. He was manipulating in such a way that his ideas were picked by his people, and he was actually running the show on that basis. And I didn't want to say anything, but then he egged me on to say, "So, what do you think?" So I just shared my thought with him, saying that he was competing with his people and he was manipulating to get his ideas through. And he was quite shocked by that honest comment, and he sort of moved away from that table and sat somewhere else for the rest of the evening. About 10 days ago, my friend called me, the guy who invited me for the wedding, and said that, look, you met my friend and you spoke to him about your work, and he's quite intrigued by your very honest comment. So can you go and see him? And I went to see this gentleman, and he said, obviously you think that I was not doing the right thing. So maybe you have some ideas on how to do the right things. So can you share with me what you do as brainstorming? What is your idea of brainstorming? So the rest of the presentation here is really about what I do in the brainstorming process, which I shared with him, and I am taking the opportunity to share that with you here as well. Uh, if you have any questions, just enter the questions there, and as and when I'm able to answer them, I'll do that, or otherwise at the end of the session I certainly will do the answering some of those questions. So let me start with my favorite quotation, which is from Einstein. It's insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. In fact, this is what all of us are guilty of. We want different results, but we'll do the same thing. I want to reduce my weight, but I'll continue to eat my sweets. I will not exercise, and I continue to have my bad habits. How would I ever lose weight, right? This is the same thing which happens in corporations too. So they have very interesting goals, but then they will not change their ways of doing things. In the brainstorming sessions that I conduct, I told this friend that there are three key players. One is the problem owner, who is called the client. Now, if it is internally done, he's an internal client. He's the person who defines the goal. He's the person who defines expectations as what he wants out of the session. And then he also defines the success criteria. What will make him say this was worth his time? What will make him say it was a failure or a waste of time or whatever it is? So we clearly understand why is he doing it and what are the expectations. The second player, the important player, is the facilitator. He is a process manager. He is committed to delivering the goods to the client. Okay. And he is also responsible for the advisor's well-being. And I'm going to talk to you about the advisors in a minute. So the reason why I'm showing you the traffic lights is the facilitator's role during the session is very much like a traffic cop. He has to manage the flow of ideas. He has to make sure that every single direction is able to move forward and so on and so forth. And he manages the energy of the group and so on. So here is one word of caution. There are people who are the clients who are actually coming to the group with a problem and also trying to run the facilitation part of it, which is an extremely difficult thing to do because the facilitator is not involved in the content and the client is not involved in the process. The moment you mix it, your results are likely to be quite dicey. Choosing the right people for the session is such an important thing, right? Now, I call them advisors because we pick their brains. Now, advisors are not participants. I actually feel very awkward when you say that we want participants for a brainstorming session. We want advisors is the right thing to say. And who are these advisors? We want talented mavericks. We want people who are talented, know their subject, and who are not afraid of stating their ideas, however weird or different they may be. Okay. My idea of a good science for a session is a maximum of 5. You can even do it, follow the process that I'm talking about just for yourself with a minimum of one person, right? Okay. The first step for the facilitator is to identify what is the real issue. He should not start the session without this. And this must be done before the session, and this conversation with the problem owner will take at least about an hour and a half, if not more, depending on the clarity of the problem owner. So this is the responsibility. Let me tell you what do I mean by the real issue. Okay, not it's about the art of framing, reframing the issue. Okay, photographers in your group will certainly identify this whole business of framing and how it changes the entire picture and the perspective. Take a look at this picture. If you're getting a little startled and you're wondering whether something is wrong with the picture or your eyes, I don't blame you. Okay. When I had a similar problem looking at the television and pictures becoming hazy and the letters were not sharp enough and so on, I went to my eye doctor. And I said, hey, I think my glass power has changed. So when you check my power and give me a new prescription so I can change my glasses? So he said, yeah, I'll do that. Now that here, let's do the right test completely anyway, right? So he did the checking. He did the complete test. And then he smiled at me and said, there is nothing wrong with your glasses, my friend. You're getting old. You get cataract on both of your eyes. That's the problem. Now, this is an interesting thing because when I went to him, I also already had defined the problem based on my knowledge of the issue. My only experience of my eyes losing the focus is because of a power problem in my glasses. I never even thought the possibility of a cataract. So this is the stuff that we need to really work with the client to understand, so that the brainstorming session addresses the right issue and not just the goal itself. Okay. If you address the right issue, the goal will take care of itself. So the facilitator's role is really to run the session in a comfortable, non-threatening climate, make it enjoyable yet rigorous in terms of progress, okay, and the process. Uh, Remain focused but be flexible. For instance, if there is a particular session after lunch and people are feeling tired and your agenda is going in a certain way, I think you should feel completely free to stop the session and say you want a stretch break for 5 minutes, go and come back. Okay. Or on the spot decide on some kind of physical activity which will energize the group again, or bring forward the tea break. Do what you like, but your focus must be on getting the results. You must be flexible enough to look after the comfort and the energy level and the motivation of the advisor group. Now, in this entire process, you'll notice there is a clear separation. There is a time for relaxation when you're generating ideas, and there is a time for rigor when you have to start actually making the selections and building on the ideas further and converting them into solutions and recommendations. The separation is about who will do what and when. Okay. So there is a clear role for the client. He is in charge of the content and I'm in charge of the process. If he wants to say anything about the process, he'll tell me and I'll take care of that. If I have a thought on the content, I have to go back to the client and then seek his permission to modify the content in the manner that I see is important. So there is a time for generating ideas and there is a time for selecting ideas or evaluating ideas. When you're sorting the ideas, you don't select them. When you're selecting them, you don't make recommendations. When you're converting it to recommendations, you don't rush into communication, and so on and so forth. So when you actually separate the steps and do it one at a time, you will find the entire process is very, very efficient. So in a way, you will not be running a race with both your legs tied. You can never do it. Most of the brainstorming sessions suffer from this problem. So we use a very interesting process, that is divergent and convergent. So you start with the task, which is what is the challenge for which we need the ideas. Then you go into a divergent mode. You use all sorts of tools and techniques to get as many different ideas from various methods of doing it. And then slowly start converging at the right time and finally move towards the outcome. So that's the divergent and that's the convergent part of the process. So the guidelines are very simple. The guidelines are very similar to the brainstorming guidelines that all of us are used to. We want lots and lots of ideas, and believe me, quantity leads to quality in brainstorming and idea generation. Okay, more the quantity, higher the probability that you will walk away with a high quality idea. This is very important, and I know people will find it difficult to accept it, but believe me, this is true. The other thing is no criticisms and no censorships. Not because I think people are weak. It's because there is a time for the criticism and censorship and to be handled in a certain way. And similarly, when you're generating ideas, don't worry about execution. Execution comes later. And when you want to do execution, worry about execution at that time. So at the time of generating ideas, don't worry about execution because it will actually slow down the process and get you into unnecessary discussions and debates and arguments which are avoidable. So once you have generated ideas, you know how many ideas you can generate? We can generate as many as 1,000 raw ideas with 25 people doing idea generation in about 3 hours time or even 2.5 hours time. When I say raw ideas, these are ideas which have the promise and potential to become a solution, but it is not yet sorted out, not yet processed. These are very, very raw ideas. It is like the two-line plot of a film, but we haven't got the entire script, we haven't got the dialogues and so on and so forth, right? The two-line script with which the writer approaches a financier and a director and a producer, based on which they actually say, okay, develop that. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. So when you start looking at the ideas, I know many people immediately say that let's sort out the ideas in a different way, which is let's knock out all the useless ideas first. And when you knock out all the useless ideas first, what will remain are useful ideas which will work on. And I can tell you this is a dangerous thing to do because all of us are so good at finding fault. We're all God's own proofreaders. We'll find fault with almost every idea, and what you'll be left with is just two or three. And those again will be very well-known ideas to you, and you suddenly get so disappointed that the brainstorming did not throw up new ideas. I've seen many clients do this, and therefore I don't do any session which only hands over newly generated ideas to them for processing. I insist on managing the entire thing because it requires some help in understanding how to separate the known and the new and help the group focus on the new so that they understand how to make that into a worthwhile solution. So how does the selection of the idea go through? What kind of criteria? Have you been to? There are a couple of ladies in the group I see, but most of the gents may not have the patience to go to a shari shop with your wife, right? But you should do that. I have seen this when I go to a sari shop with my wife or my daughter. What they do is they keep looking at the saris. They keep asking this guy to give it and bring it closer and show it, right? And they are going by gut feel, and finally they'll make a short list. They're not rejecting anything, they're only selecting. Okay, finally they'll say, okay, make a short list of about 4 or 5 saris and then say, is this sari likely to fit in my budget? And then they can even decide whether they will make a selection based on some adjustments in the budget or getting into negotiation, etc. Never in the beginning, even if this guy says what is your budget, they don't answer him. He says, are you looking for saris in 5,000 rupees? They'll say, no. You please tell me what are the things available, what are the latest, I want to see that. So this is way to approach your ideas. Pay heed to gut feel first, apply logic later. you must love the idea, you must be passionate about it, you must fall in with the love idea, fall in love with the idea, and then say, this is something I want to see in execution. So that's how you must start. That's the first criterion. Do you love the idea? Are you passionate about it? If you had the money and authority and power, would you put your money on it? Are you willing to put your money and time on it if you had the authority and power? If you don't want to do that, don't go for that idea. So finally, you must understand how to make a case for the idea that you've selected. Talk about the positives. Positives are what is good about this idea today. Okay. Then talk about what is the promise and the potential. What else can this idea become? When the idea is executed, what could be the future gains that we can see in coming to the organization, coming to the employees, coming to the customers? Who are you talking about? It's really the metamorphosis business, right? I mean, this is something everybody will understand, and that's why I'm saying this. But we seldom do this potential part of it. Okay, we judge the idea based on here and now. And then while you're doing it, be practical. Look at the idea from the problem owner's perspective, the stakeholder. What are some of the concerns he will have? Now, these hurdles, I'm calling them hurdles, not barriers. These are temporary question marks. It's like a speed breaker. If you see a speed breaker in the road, you just slow down, but you don't stop. You're not actually stopping your journey. These are like that. Identify some of the key issues that he will come out with based on his priorities, his concerns, and address some of them while you're actually putting the case together. Because at the end of the day, we are generating ideas for him, not for yourself. So look at it through his eyes at that time. So even the positives and the potential and the promise must be looked at from his perspective, okay, not just your own. So once this is available, let's assume that, out of this group of 25 and 5 to a table, each table comes out with about say 2 ideas per table. So there are 10 ideas which are presented to the client, where they are solving the particular challenge that he has put together for them. And then they have actually said, okay, these ideas are good on the basis of what we see, these are good in terms of the potential and future gains, and these are some of the practical issues that we see. So this this is the bouquet for you for your consideration. And then clients spend some time on these, and out of that he will see there are some emerging patterns and themes coming up. And then based on that, he is going to now say, come back to the group and say, out of these 5 or 10 that you gave me, I have chosen 4. Okay, these are the themes that I want to follow. I like the theme A for ABC reasons, and there are some practical issues. My brief to you is that give me suggestions on how do we overcome some of these practical issues, and come back to me with your recommendation. Right? This is what he'll give a brief in terms of all the themes that you have chosen. Now, one of the things he will also do, he will actually match the right kind of talent set and skill set available in the group based on the task that he is giving them. Just to give an example, suppose there is an idea distribution, that the distribution team will consist of people from sales and marketing, people from distribution, people from logistics, people from commercial, people from the factory, and so on, who are concerned with distribution in some way or the other, and are likely to know a lot about how to tackle distribution issues. So their skills and talent are matched to the task. So when they come back with recommendations, it will be a really robust recommendation which you can actually work on, right? So that's how the solution is developed, and that's how the recommendations are made by this particular group to the client. So when he actually comes out of the meeting, he can go with some. I mean, he can actually walk away with very clear recommendations. So he can even go to the extent of defining the next steps in terms of who, what, when, and what milestones. He could actually ask for volunteers. Okay, who is going to work on the distribution problem, right? Who is going to work on the new product development stuff? Who is going to work on the challenge on communication, and so on and so forth? Okay, it depends on the task at hand. So when you walk out, you walk out with a clear ideas that who is going to do what by when, and that checklist is available with the client. And thereafter he can go into a chasing mode, as it were, to make sure things happen on that basis. GE has a very good system. Within 15 days, each group has to come back with a I's dotted, T's crossed kind of plan on how they'll take it forward. and they'll define milestones in terms of in the first 30 days, what would they cover? In the first 60 days, what would they cover? And the first 90 days, what would they cover? Every month, there will be a review. And the review is about what have you done? Where have you arrived? Okay. If you're not moving according to schedule, what are you going to do to catch up? How can we help? And there is no postmortem. And this makes the entire process so encouraging and empowering for the group to move forward. This is what brings closure to this entire way of working. So if you really look at this way of working is the real way to work a brainstorming session. Typically, a brainstorming session is required when you really want the collective brain power of your people to crack a major issue. Okay, so that's what brainstorming is all about. So you can work on it alone, but there are times you would benefit by the experience and the expertise and the knowledge of the colleagues that you have with you. Sometimes you can call in external experts to come in and join in your brainstorming session. So that too is eminently possible. So everything is decided by what is the client's expectation and what does he want ideas for, and what is the key challenge that we must actually try and solve. So I want to now take a few questions. Okay. Okay, that's it. I think all of us are ready to move on further for the rest of the day. Thank you so much for being with me. And the next session is going to be on the 29th, and I'll send you an intimation of what the session would be. Thank you so much again. I deeply appreciate your taking the time off. Thank you very much once again. And thank you, Justin, for that wonderful line on vitamin for the overworked mind. Vitamin fix for the overworked mind. Thank you. Bye.